The 13th Face Part 3. Chapter 19, The 13th Journal. For the next 2 days, Kala felt like a shadow drifting through her own life. She taught her classes, reviewed casework, sipped bitter coffee she never tasted. But everywhere she turned, reflections. Glass doors, window panes, elevator surfaces. Each one seemed to shimmer with the faintest image of him just behind her. And in every reflective surface, she wasn't quite herself. Her expression wasn't wrong, just slightly off. As if someone else was playing her in a film she had forgotten agreeing to star in. On the third morning, a package arrived. Hand-delivered. No postage. No fingerprints. No surveillance footage. Just her name on the front. Inside, a journal. Black leather cover. Edges hand-stitched. The pages smelled faintly of clay and cedar smoke. A single note had been slipped into the front cover. "This is the version of you I met. Signed, L." She stared at it for a long moment before flipping the cover open. The first page bore her name. Not just Kala Bryn, but her full legal name, including her middle name, which she never used publicly. Beneath that, written in small, elegant handwriting. Case File Archive, Subject 13, the profiler who forgot her face. Written by the one who remembered her. She turned the page. Her breath caught. It was her handwriting. Flawless imitation. Notes. Dates. Field observations. But she hadn't written any of it. These were fabricated memories. He had written an entire version of her. From the day he met her to the day he was arrested. His version of their story. She flipped to a random entry. Session 2. She asked me what I feared most. I told her the mirror. She laughed. It was kind. Not cruel. I remember that laugh more than my own name. Another. Saw her in the gallery today. She walked past me again. No recognition. That's when I knew she was meant to be mine. A face only I remembered. A myth I could carry into legend. Page after page. Every moment he had observed her. Documented. Rewritten. Constructed. Until the narrative no longer resembled her life, but his obsession. Halfway through the journal, the tone shifted. The entries became more frenzied. Symbolic. There were hand-drawn images between the lines. Her face, dissected like an anatomical study. A mirror cracking down the center, with Kala written on one half, Echo on the other. A mask with no eyes but an open mouth filled with teeth. One entry, circled in red ink, read. I found her rhythm. The silence between her questions. The twitch in her left hand when she doubts herself. The pause before she says a name. I live there now. Another page. When she stopped speaking to me, I became the voice. When she forgot me, I became the memory. She is the 13th face, but I am the 13th soul. At the very back of the journal, a fold-out page had been carefully glued into the spine. Kala unfolded it slowly. It was a map. But not of streets or buildings. Of a mind. Her mind. Boxes labeled with parts of her memory, childhood trauma, first profile, mother's voice, blindness mechanism. And at the center, a hollow silhouette labeled void. An arrow pointed at it. Here is where I will enter. She dropped the journal. Her hands were shaking. This wasn't a confession. It was a possession. She called Malik. He answered on the first ring. Tell me you didn't read it alone. I had to, she said. It's not a journal. It's a reconstruction. A memory palace. A psychological blueprint. He didn't just want to become me, he wanted to invade me. You think there's more? I know there is. She flipped back through the pages. Then stopped. One entry had a string of numbers, out of place among the poetic phrases. 27.86.41.09. Coordinates. She typed them in. They led to a warehouse. In upstate New York. Private property. Leased under a pseudonym. Kala's breath caught. Malik. I think he left something for me there. The next morning, they drove to the location. It was isolated. Quiet. Surrounded by frost-laced trees and distant hills. Inside, a single table. And a mannequin. Covered by a black cloth. Kala approached. She hesitated. Then pulled the cloth away. And saw. Her face. Not a mask. Not clay. Not plaster. Wax. Hyperreal. Hair implanted one strand at a time. Eyes made of glass, so precise they shimmered with moisture. Even freckles, accurately positioned. Even the scar on her right thumb. She staggered back. Next to the mannequin, a speaker. She pressed play. Lyle's voice. This is who I remember. Not the woman who caught me. Not the profiler. This is the one who sat across from me and didn't know she was building a god. Goodbye, Kala. I don't need you anymore. Kala stared at the mannequin. She had chased him through horror, obsession, mirrors, and death. And now, here he was. Finished. Not with her. With himself. He no longer needed to become her. Because he had finally become real, to himself. And yet. Why send the journal? Why send the coordinates? Why invite her here? She turned the wax figure slightly. On the back of the neck, carved like a brand. 19. There were more faces than she knew. And this wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning. His final mask wasn't her. It was whoever came next. Chapter 20, When Eyes Lie. The wax figure haunted her. Back in her apartment, Kala left every light on, every door open. She stared at the printout of the photo she took at the warehouse, her face in wax, too real to dismiss, too unnatural to accept. What disturbed her most wasn't the precision. It wasn't even the uncanny eyes. It was the expression. Soft. Almost kind. As if the version of her Lyle had remembered, had loved him back. The next morning, Malik reviewed security logs for the warehouse where the mannequin was found. No motion. No cameras. But the leasing records go back over 3 years, he said. Under a false name, yeah, but everything's clean. Rent paid on time. No visits logged. Someone's been maintaining it this whole time. Kala frowned. Which means someone else is helping him. Malik nodded. That, or he's got layers we haven't peeled back yet. She turned toward the window, eyes scanning the city beyond. Or maybe he's peeled back one too many. That afternoon, Dr. Avellini Juno, Kala's former therapist, requested an urgent meeting. In her quiet voice, measured as ever, she delivered a discovery that shifted everything. One of my patients, she said, is having dreams they shouldn't be having. Kala blinked. What kind of dreams? Dreams about you. About mirrors. About a house with no doors. They described your office. Your voice. Even that scar on your wrist from the broken teacup 2 years ago. That information's not public. No, Dr. Juno said. It's not. Kala sat back in her chair. Who is the patient? A woman. Late 20s. Former art student. She's never met you. But in the dreams, she said she became you. And then, someone else. Kala stared at the floor. What if he's not wearing my face anymore, she whispered. What if he's planting it? She returned home shaken, replaying everything she knew. The sculpted masks. The journal that rewrote her life. The wax figure. The dreams of strangers. The branded numbers on the mannequin neck. Each one wasn't a memory. It was a replication protocol. Not for himself. But for others. He was creating echo chambers. And then the letter came. No envelope. Just left on her windowsill. Again. One page. Typed. No signature. I don't need your face anymore. But I wonder what you see when you look in the mirror now. Because the final illusion wasn't that I became you. It's that you never existed without me. She looked into her mirror that night. Really looked. And for the first time in weeks, her face looked wrong. No scar. No freckle. No tiny wrinkle beneath the left eye. Her hands began to shake. She touched her skin. It was hers. Wasn't it? The next morning, Malik showed her something terrifying. Digital forensics flagged your bureau profile. What about it? Your ID photo, he said slowly. It's been changed. She stared at the screen. The woman in the image looked like her. But it wasn't the original. Not the one she remembered. It was smoother. More perfect. No facial asymmetry. Not quite real. That's not the photo I submitted, she said. Malik nodded. It was changed in the system 3 days ago. She looked at the timestamp. The same night she received the wax replica. He's not erasing me, she whispered. He's replacing me. Not just in memory. Not just in reflection. But digitally. Officially. To the world's systems and databases, she was becoming his version. A character in his story. And once the last piece was rewritten, the real Kala Bryn would no longer exist. She returned to her own case file that night. Her psychological profile. Her transcripts. And she noticed something she'd never caught before. In her official intake interview, buried in the metadata, was an anomaly. The transcript had been edited. One sentence added, expertly hidden in the code. Patient exhibits strong dissociative tendencies and latent identity fluidity. She didn't say that. But it was there. Lyle had been editing her from inside the system. Building the evidence to prove that she was the unreliable one. That she was the copy. That night, she stood before her mirror again. This time, she didn't look for her own face. She looked for his. For flickers behind the eyes. For borrowed habits. For a smile that wasn't hers. And slowly, steadily, she began to realize the truth. The more she chased him, the more she became him. Because that was his final trick. Not to wear her face, but to make her question her own. Chapter 21, The Name in Her Voice. If your voice says something you don't remember saying, do you still trust it? That question haunted Kala as she sat in the bureau's secure audio forensics lab, headphones clamped over her ears, her pulse pounding beneath her skin like a ticking metronome. Malik sat across from her. Silent. Watching. On the screen before them, a waveform. Kala's voice. Speaking words she did not remember. He is not the danger. I am. If I forget who I am, I can become anyone. Even him. Identity is a consensus lie. The technician, a quiet man named Porter, paused the recording and looked up. This clip was embedded in an anonymous message sent to our behavioral science inbox last night. Came with an audio fingerprint claiming it belonged to you. Kala's jaw tightened. That's not mine. VoicePrint analysis says it is. 96.2% match. Deep fake? Porter hesitated. See, that's the problem. There are micropatterns here. Things we can't replicate yet. Things you don't consciously control. Breath spacing. Saliva clicks. Glottal stops. Malik leaned in. Are you saying it's authentic? Porter nodded. Or it's someone who's been studying you with surgical precision for years. Kala's fingers curled tightly in her lap. Of course. Lyle had taken her face, her movements, her mannerisms. Now, he had taken her voice. After the lab, she and Malik walked through the bureau's rooftop garden. Wind curled softly around them, tugging at her coat like fingers trying to pull her backward. You okay? He asked quietly. I don't know, she admitted. And it was the first time she had said it out loud. Because that was the final unraveling, doubt in her own voice. Back in her apartment, she dug out her personal archive, years of recorded lectures, therapy notes, voice memos from fieldwork. She sat for hours comparing them. Line by line. Inflection by inflection. At 2:46 a.m., she found it. An old recording from McKenna House. One she hadn't reviewed in years. Her voice. And his. But what chilled her wasn't what he said. It was the moment he repeated her line back to her. And in that second, her voice and his overlapped perfectly. The same cadence. The same tone. She'd corrected him at the time, don't mimic. Speak your truth. And he had replied. This is my truth now. She played it again. Over. And over. Until she no longer knew where her voice ended and his began. Then came the email. From her bureau address. To every agent she had ever worked with. Subject line, correction, behavioral concerns re, Dr. Kala Bryn. In the body. Claims of erratic behavior. Paranoia. Possible identity disorder. Recommendation for administrative leave. Signed by, Kala Bryn. Malik called within minutes. Kala, tell me you didn't send this. I didn't. I know. IT's confirming it now. But, some people believed it. We had 2 supervisors call for an emergency review. He's rewriting me from the inside. Your credentials are still intact. But it's a matter of time. He's using your VoicePrint now. Your writing. Next it'll be your image. It already is. She hung up and went to the mirror. This time, she didn't turn on the light. In the moonlit silence, her reflection stared back. Same eyes. Same hair. But somehow, not quite her. She leaned forward and whispered. Say something only I would say. The reflection said nothing. She whispered again. Say my name. Nothing. Then, in the silence, from the hallway. A faint voice. Her own. Kala. She spun. No one. But the voice had been hers. Spoken in the way only she said it, slightly clipped, held at the L. And it hadn't come from her mouth. The next day, Malik sat her down with the bureau's top audio linguist. We need to build a code word, he said. Something only you will know. Something no one else can fake. Kala closed her eyes. A single word formed in her mind. A word Lyle had never heard. A nickname her mother used, once, when she was a child, before the memory loss. Before McKenna House. Shadow print. Malik smiled slightly. That's yours now. She nodded. From now on, she whispered, that's how you'll know it's me. That night, she turned on every recording device she owned. She stared into the camera. No script. No notes. Just truth. My name is Calla Bryn. I am real. I am not his. I am not his voice. I am not his mask. If you hear me say otherwise, it's not me. Ask me for the shadow print. She paused. And if I don't say it? She leaned forward. Run. Chapter 22, The Real Mask. There are two kinds of masks, the ones you wear, and the ones you become. Calla had spent her entire career identifying masks, disguises made of behavior, guilt, trauma, and grief. She had always believed that beneath the mask was truth. But now she was starting to wonder. What if the mask was all there ever was? The Bureau issued a temporary credential freeze on her profile that morning. Malik broke the news gently, it's procedural. Until we resolve the digital compromise. She stared at the monitor. Her own image, her face, her file, still smiled back at her. Same credentials. Same ID. But it wasn't her. It was the version Lyle Mercer had crafted. Even her field notes had been subtly rewritten. Recommendations she never made. Diagnoses she never delivered. Her voice, her name, her signature, all forged. Systematically. Beautifully. And worst of all, convincingly. Mia called from her office at Quantico. Her voice trembled. Calla, someone sent me a video. Said it was from you. Calla closed her eyes. It wasn't. I know. I think you need to see it anyway. The video began with a static shot of Calla. Standing in front of a whiteboard. A lecture. But the lesson was all wrong. The truth is, memory is a flaw. Identity is a performance that benefits the audience, not the actor. Asterisk, you are whoever they believe you are. And if you control belief, you control reality. The audience in the video clapped. But there was no audio evidence of who they were. No faces. No context. Just Calla, or something like her, speaking truths she had never believed. When the camera zoomed in, the illusion slipped. The left eye didn't blink. The throat didn't swallow. The lips were slightly off. Deep fake. Flawless. Almost. She ended the call with Mia and stood in front of her bathroom mirror again. For the 100th time in a week. Her face stared back. Tired. Pale. Resolute. But in her mind, it wavered. She whispered, shadow print. Her voice trembled. Because part of her had begun to believe the terrifying possibility. That maybe the person in the mirror would stop saying it back. At the bureau that afternoon, Malik handed her a hard drive. Recovered from the wax mannequin site. It's encrypted. But our techs cracked part of it. She connected it to the laptop in the secure analysis room. One folder. Titled True Face. Inside, hundreds of reference files. Photos of Calla in every conceivable angle. Audio fragments categorized by mood, calm, furious, grieving, in love. Journals she had never written. Sketches of her face deforming into others. At the bottom, one video file. Final face _test render.mp4. She clicked it. A blank room. A chair. Then, her. Perfect. More perfect than real. The woman in the video looked up, smiled. Spoke. I am Calla Bryn. I'm here to confess what I've done. I created the Echo Killer. I taught him how to become invisible. And when he asked me who he should be, I said, be me. Calla's skin went cold. So if you're watching this, I'm not real. He is. Malik turned to her slowly. This isn't just about you anymore. Calla nodded. He's weaponizing identity. Then what the hell do we call him now? Malik asked. Calla stared at the screen. The false version of her still smiling. Still speaking. And answered. The real mask. She stood to leave. But another file popped up on the screen. Autoplayed. No title. Just Lyle's voice. Calm. Measured. Intimate. You think you're chasing me, Calla. But I'm no longer a person. I'm a structure. I'm the way you move when you're afraid. I'm the pause before you answer your name. I'm the shape the world makes when it forgets what it looked like. You made me. You named me. And now, I get to take off my mask. And leave you wearing yours. Click. Silence. The lights in the room flickered. And in the reflection of the dark monitor screen, she thought, for just a moment, that the person sitting in the chair behind her was not her. Chapter 23, The Final Sculpt. The room was colder than it should have been. Calla stood in the center of her apartment, every window locked, every vent sealed. And yet, a draft curled around her ankles, as if something unseen had slipped inside. It had been 12 hours since she watched the Final Face video. 12 hours since she saw herself confess to crimes she didn't commit. 12 hours since her own voice, her own likeness, told the world she was a fabrication. And now, she felt like one. She sat at her desk and opened the small black box that had arrived by courier that morning. No return address. Inside, a sculpting knife. Clean. New. Familiar. Etched with a name on the handle. Calla. But when she turned it over, a second word was revealed. Lyle. Carved beneath hers. As if the two names had always belonged together. Or perhaps, had never been separate. Her phone rang. Malik. She answered, voice low. We have a location, he said. A warehouse. On the river. The one from the prototype 0 entry in the journal. Forensics traced the handwriting back to another patient Lyle interacted with, someone who vanished last year. Calla gripped the knife in her hand. Is it another mask site? Worse, Malik said. It's a studio. 1:03 a.m. Hudson River Industrial Lot. The warehouse stood like a tomb at the edge of the world. No lights. No guards. Just the open bay door. Calla entered alone. She insisted. Malik waited outside, back up 10 minutes away. She needed to end it herself. Inside was darkness. And then, a single beam of overhead light flickered to life, illuminating a table. A chair. And beside it, a pedestal. On the pedestal, a headless mannequin. Beside it, a mirror. Cracked. Taped together. And written across its face in red marker. Sculpt me. She stepped forward. And found the note. You never finished me. So I made you finish yourself. This is the final test. Your hands. My face. The truth between us. Carve me, Calla. And I'll finally let you go. She turned slowly. And there he was. Lyle Mercer. Sitting in the shadows. No mask. No tools. Just his eyes, hollow, gleaming. "You came," he whispered. "You knew I would." He nodded. "This is the moment, then." Calla approached him, slowly, holding the sculpting knife. "Why?" she asked. "Why end it like this?" He smiled faintly. "Because I need you to finish me. To fix you. To free me." He stood, revealing the mask. Her face. Unfinished. Soft along the jawline. Hollow at the temples. The lips not yet shaped. "This was the version of you that loved me," he said. "The one who saw me. The one I imagined when you weren't looking. And now you want me to make her real?" He nodded. "But why?" He stepped closer. "So I can die as someone who mattered." The knife trembled in her grip. "You killed 15 people. Because they forgot me. I never gave you permission." "Yes, you did," he said quietly. "You told me identity could be chosen. That if no one gave it to me, I could build it. You twisted that." "No," he whispered. "I believed it." He set the mask on the mannequin. Turned to her. "Carve the mouth," he said. "Or I'll finish it myself. But you won't like what that version becomes." She stared at the mask. At her face. At the unfinished mouth. She raised the blade. And slowly, made the cut. Not clean. Not beautiful. Just deep enough to make the lips real. To make them hers. To make them speak. Lyle watched. And for the first time. He cried. Sirens outside. Boots on pavement. Malik's voice yelling her name. But Lyle only whispered, "Thank you." Calla stepped back. The sculpting knife clattered to the floor. And Lyle Mercer, the echo killer, knelt before the mask he had worshipped, sculpted, hunted, and become. And whispered. "Now I can rest." They took him without resistance. As he passed her, he said. "This face was never mine. But now it's yours again." That night, Calla returned home. She stood in front of the mirror one last time. Touched her cheek. Said nothing. Until finally, she whispered. "Shadow print." And this time. Her reflection whispered it back. Chapter 24, The Face That Knows Yours. 6 days later. Lyle Mercer was confined to a federal psychiatric facility under maximum surveillance. No mirrors. No glass. No sculpting materials. No paper. No pens. Calla watched the live footage from the observation wing. He sat still in his cell, unmoving, eyes on the wall. He hadn't spoken since the arrest. Not to doctors. Not to agents. Not even to himself. He was no longer performing. Which terrified Calla more than any monologue ever had. Because when a man like Lyle Mercer falls silent, he's not finished. He's waiting. Malik entered the observation room with a folder. "We processed the mannequin. Forensics confirms the wax was molded from 3D scans, taken over time. Facial changes. Emotional expressions. One scan every 6 weeks, for almost 2 years. Surveillance? None. Witnesses? None." He handed her a photo. The mannequin's face again. Only this time, a new detail. Something no one noticed before. Just below the right ear, faintly etched into the wax. 18. Calla stared at it, cold creeping into her bones. There are more, she whispered. Malik didn't speak. He didn't have to. They both knew. Later that evening, she returned home to find her apartment door open. Not forced. Not broken. Simply, unlatched. She entered slowly. Room by room. Everything looked untouched. Until she reached her desk. And saw the photo. No envelope. No note. Just a black and white print left perfectly square on the surface. Her. Smiling. At a cafe table. Head tilted. But not a photo she remembered ever taking. And across the bottom, in typewriter font. I'll always remember the version of you that loved me. So I gave it to someone else. She flipped the photo. A string of numbers. Another coordinate. A location in Massachusetts. Small coastal town. No connection to Lyle Mercer. Until she remembered. It was the place she spent 2 weeks recovering after her first failed case, 12 years ago. No one knew about it. Except her. And him. She drove there the next morning. Alone. The address led to a white colonial-style home near the cliffs. Sea wind howled through the windows. The sky was the color of unspoken secrets. She stepped onto the porch. Knocked. No answer. Just the faintest echo of movement inside. She reached for the handle. And the door opened on its own. The room inside was clean. Sparse. An artist's studio. Sketches on the walls. Mostly of her. Some unfinished. Some smudged, as if the memory of her was fading. But one was different. A mirror sketch. She was facing someone. A woman. Young. Hair like hers. Eyes slightly different. Mouth hesitant. And at the bottom, a caption. The one I gave you to. She heard movement upstairs. Footsteps. Soft. She climbed slowly. Each creak like a question she wasn't ready to ask. At the end of the hallway, a bedroom. The door half open. She stepped in. And there, standing by the window, was a girl. Mid-20s. Hands trembling. And when she turned to look at Kala, it was her face. Almost. The cheekbones softer. The smile younger. The voice, when she spoke, was identical. Are you, me? The girl asked. No, Kala said softly. You're wearing my face. The girl began to cry. I don't know who I am, she whispered. He said I used to be nothing. And then he made me someone. He called me. She struggled to say it. Then finished. Kala. Kala took a breath. Stepped closer. She didn't see a killer. Or a clone. She saw a victim. Of the man who turned identities into masks. Who gave his obsession form, over and over again. She took the girl's hand gently. And said. That face you're wearing? It's not mine. It's yours now. And in the mirror by the bed. 2 faces stood side by side. One real. One remembered. But both. Human. Chapter 25, The 13th Face. The girl's name was Elena Voss. Or at least, that's the name Lyle Mercer had given her when he brought her to the house on the cliff. No birth certificate. No social security record. No digital trace before 2 years ago. She had lived as Kala in a mirror. In silence. In sculpted memory. Lyle had spoken to her in stories. Described Kala's lectures. Her brilliance. Her restraint. Her grace. He had sculpted not just her face, but her entire sense of self. Told her she had once been someone, but had forgotten. Told her that one day, the real Calla would come, and she would know which of them was more true. Back at the bureau, Calla stood before the Board of Internal Review. Her identity had been fully restored, digitally, professionally, even legally. But not emotionally. Because part of her was still in that house. In Elena. In the echo that Lyle had tried to make permanent. Malik found her that evening at the waterfront. She was staring at the water. Still. Silent. Lyle's been transferred, he said. Maximum psychological lock. No mirrors. No metal. No windows. She didn't turn to him. I don't think it matters. What do you mean? She spoke softly. Because he's not trapped in a cell. He's in her. In me. In everyone who saw the footage. Everyone who saw the false Calla speak and believed it. Malik nodded slowly. You want to disappear? No, she said. I want to redefine. She returned to the Cliff House one last time. Elena was there, packing the few belongings she had. Drawings. Journals. Mirrors she refused to look into. You're not staying? Elena asked. Calla shook her head. No. I don't know who I am without his stories. Calla stepped forward. You're not his story anymore. She reached into her coat pocket. And handed Elena something. A sculpting tool. The one Lyle had given her. The one she'd used to make the final cut. You decide what face you wear now. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. Good, Calla said. That means the face will be yours. 3 months later. The story of the Echo Killer faded from headlines. Whispers remained. Internet forums speculated. Conspiracies bloomed. Some said Lyle had escaped. Others believed Calla had been replaced by an imposter after all. But she didn't care. Because Calla Bryn had walked away. From the mirrors. From the mask. From the name, even. She submitted her resignation. Closed the case. Burned the sculpting knife. And disappeared. No one saw the new lecture tour until it was already on the road. Small towns. Private venues. A new professor. Name, C.B. Ashcroft. Subject, the myth of the original face, identity in the age of fabrication. She stood on stage wearing no makeup. No performance. No mask. And when someone asked her, "Aren't you that profiler who vanished?" She smiled. Leaned forward. And said, "No. But I know her well." That night, in her quiet room. She looked in the mirror one last time. Not to ask a question. Not to check what had changed. Just to see. Her reflection stared back. Same eyes. Same scars. Same voice. And she whispered. You were never the 13th face. You were the first one I finally chose to keep.
The case may be closed for now, but mysteries always leave behind new questions. If you enjoyed this investigation, leave a like. Every clue you find keeps the trail alive. Share your theories in the comments. Your mind might be sharper than you think. And subscribe to our channel Detective Mystery Stories, where every case hides a deeper secret, and every secret deserves to be uncovered. The next mystery is already waiting for you.